Welcome to BBC International News. First I will tell you the news title and then the details. Breaking news: massive drone strike suggests Ukraine is going after Russia's devastating glide bombs. Top news: Netanyahu determined on Rafah offensive, with or without hostage deal. Great news: Iran made valuable intelligence breakthroughs following Operation True Promise, ex-military office. Listen to the news title so far, now listen to the details.
Massive drone strike suggests Ukraine is going after Russia's devastating glide bombs. Russia has increasingly relied on glide bomb strikes to hammer Ukrainian frontline positions and cities. The recent Ukrainian drone attack on a Russian airbase suggests Kyiv is going after the bombs. Britain's defense ministry said glide bomb kits appear to have been destroyed in the Saturday attack. Ukraine's massive weekend drone attack on a Russian airbase deep behind enemy lines suggests Kyiv may be trying to curb the threat of Moscow's devastating glide bombs, according to new Western intelligence. Russia has increasingly relied on glide bomb strikes to hammer Ukrainian positions in recent months. These munitions are particularly difficult to intercept because they have short flight times, small radar signatures, and non-ballistic trajectories. Glide bombs have flight control surfaces and are known as standoff weapons, meaning that Russian warplanes can release them at a distance beyond the range of Ukraine's air defense systems. Shooting down the planes before they release the weapon or striking them on the ground are really the only ways to defeat the threat. Destroying the bombs before they get in the air is an option as well. Ukrainian forces on Saturday fired dozens of attack drones at the Kushtyavskaya airfield and at two oil refineries in southwest Russia, quite a distance from the front lines, the Kyiv Independent reported. It marked the latest of Kyiv's long-range attacks, which have targeted Moscow's military and energy facilities. The Kushtyavskaya base is home to Russia's Su-34 and Su-35 fighter jets, which are used daily in strike missions against Ukrainian frontline positions, including the heavy use of glide bombs, Britain's defense ministry wrote in a Tuesday intelligence update. The ministry said footage from a storage location at the airfield showed that multiple glide bomb kits were destroyed in Saturday's attack. It wasn't immediately clear whether any of the aircraft were damaged or destroyed in the attack. Satellite imagery of the airfield shared by Brady Frick, an open-source intelligence analyst at the American Enterprise Institute think tank, showed some damage to the facility. Britain's defense ministry said Russian fighters from Kushtyavskaya and other similar bases typically conduct 100 to 150 sorties per day, a significant percentage of those launching munitions all along the front lines as Russia attempts to force breakthroughs through sheer firepower. Ukraine's ability to disrupt Russian tactical air, particularly glide bomb usage, is key to the wider defense of the front lines, the UK continued. This successful strike is likely to force further Russian dispersals of fighters, as well as reallocation of air defense assets to plug gaps. Glide bombs have been a headache for Kyiv's forces for much of the war, but Russia has significantly ramped up its attacks using these weapons over the past few months. These weapons were a particular problem around the eastern Ukrainian city of Avdiivka earlier this year, which Moscow captured after a bloody months-long campaign. Unlike more traditional gravity bombs, which are dropped above a target, glide bombs can be launched from miles behind the front lines, limiting an aircraft's exposure to enemy air defenses. Russia's defense ministry said in March that it began increasing production of several types of munitions, including 6,600-pound ones, that could be modified and turned into glide bombs. Saturday's strike on the Kushtyavskaya air base isn't the first time Ukraine has gone after Russian air bases hosting fighter bombers that can drop glide bombs. In early April, Ukraine staged a huge drone attack on the Morozovsk airbase in Rostov, hundreds of miles inside Russia. While the extent of the damage was ultimately unclear, the attack appeared to honor Ukraine's desire to stomp out the glide bomb threat before the aircraft could take flight. Experts have warned that Russian glide bombs pose a tremendous threat to Ukrainian forces. Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War think tank said on Saturday that Russian forces had significantly changed tactical aviation operations in Ukraine with their mass use of glide bombs, allowing fixed-wing aircraft to more safely conduct strikes from further in the rear. The analysts wrote in their assessment, These glide bomb strikes will continue to play a critically important role in supporting Russian ground operations this summer despite the likely improved air defense capabilities that Ukrainian forces will be able to leverage against Russian aircraft as additional Western air defense material arrives. Netanyahu determined on Rafah offensive, with or without hostage deal. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's planned offensive on the southern Gaza Strip city of Rafah will go ahead whether or not a hostage agreement is made with Palestinian Islamist group Hamas, he told a meeting on Tuesday. We will enter Rafah and we will eliminate the Hamas battalions there, with or without a deal, he told relatives of Israeli hostages and fallen soldiers, according to his office. Netanyahu is determined to launch an offensive in Rafah to eliminate the remaining strongholds of Hamas, though Israel's allies have repeatedly urged caution, as a large majority of the approximately 2.2 million inhabitants of the Gaza Strip have fled to the south during the war. The idea that we will halt the war before achieving all of its goals is out of the question. We will enter Rafah and we will eliminate the Hamas battalions there, with or without a deal, in order to achieve the total victory, Netanyahu said, as he faces calls at home to achieve his war objectives despite pressure from abroad. His comments come as indirect negotiations are held in Cairo over a new ceasefire agreement and the release of further hostages in return for Palestinian prisoners. There were initial hopes that Israel would refrain from the planned Rafah operation if a deal can be made. People in Rafah are terrified and expect to be evacuated at any moment ahead of a planned incursion, according to a non-governmental organization active in the area. Our colleagues are telling us there is extraordinarily deep anxiety, said Philippe Lazzarini, the head of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli military has not yet instructed people to leave, but people expect this at any moment, he said, adding that much depends on the ceasefire talks and release of hostages. In Jerusalem, a suspected Turkish citizen was shot dead after stabbing an Israeli border policeman in the Old City on Tuesday. The policeman was injured, Israeli police said after the incident. The man entered the country from Jordan as a tourist on Monday, according to Ynet news site. An Israeli Foreign Ministry spokesman said the report was being investigated. Iran made valuable intelligence breakthroughs following Operation True Promise, ex-military office. Tehran, a retired senior Lebanese officer, referring to Iran's recent punitive response against the Zionist regime, highlighted Tehran's valuable intelligence achievements following the operation. According to Realim, the retired officer, Mohammad al-Hosseini, stated that Tehran's response is the result of a long-standing conflict with the Zionist regime that began about 4 decades ago. He added that this response followed the Zionist regime's attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, which Iran considered a threat to national security and a clear violation of its sovereignty. Additionally, Tehran's response was a limited strike aimed at creating strategic deterrence to prevent further attacks on Iranian diplomats, thwart repeated attacks on its embassy, and create a deterrent for Israeli regime actions inside Iran. Al-Hosseini continued by saying that Tehran initiated the attack with hundreds of very inexpensive drones, and in response, the occupying regime spent $1.5 billion to shoot down these drones. The Iranians did not use any new technology, so the Zionists could not obtain any new information, but the Iranians obtained a lot of information about the capabilities of the Americans and the Zionists. This retired Lebanese military officer averred that in the second wave, Iran fired old cruise missiles, and once again the Zionist regime and its allies countered with expensive guided missiles, utilizing all their capabilities to obtain more information. Then Tehran fired ballistic missiles, directly targeting 2 key air bases in southern and northern occupied Palestine. He also stated that there is no separation between Iran's response and what is happening in southern Lebanon and Gaza since the Operation True Promise. Iran's response has created strategic developments on a global scale and engagement in the region, including the 2 fronts of Gaza and southern Lebanon, as follows. First, Iran presented itself as a global power in the international arena, indicating its ability to engage in war, if necessary, contrary to the beliefs of the United States and the Zionists. The assumption of the U.S. and the Zionist regime was that sanctions economically and politically incapacitate Iran from responding. Second, the fear and terror caused by Iran's attack in official circles among the Zionists. Third, the effects of Iran's response against the Zionist regime on the Lebanon front with occupied Palestine became apparent. The reaction was not like before. Hezbollah sent drones deep into enemy territory, targeting the Shraga garrison in the north of Akka on April 23rd, which was the first time since the start of the war. This made the enemy realize the changing situation. Additionally, Hezbollah targeted the town of Meron and its surrounding areas on April 28th. This forces the occupying regime to reconsider its calculations and fantasies about Iran, compelling it to abandon its illusions of neutralizing Iran's military presence in regional developments. Fourth, the lack of an immediate response from the Zionist regime and Washington's efforts for calm established a new stage, showing that the Americans and Europeans do not have the ability to control tensions in the region if Tel Aviv acts arrogantly against Hezbollah or Iran. Fifth, although Iran's operation gave the occupying regime an opportunity to once again portray itself as a victim in international forums, but its positive impact on the Gaza war was significant and highlighted Iran's capabilities.